So we got two great guests to end up the semester, beginning with tonight with this man. Let's welcome Ryan Simon, manager, ticket services, Philadelphia Phillies. Have a seat right here.
Yes, I can say I have been in Rowan before. My brother-in-law graduated from Rowan, poli-sci major.
Okay.
So that's great.
All right.
And then a few years ago, I celebrated my birthday on campus at an escape room. So I'm a nerd like that. I like going to escape rooms and things like that. And they have a great one here. So.
Oh, so you've been to Rome Boulevard?
I've been to Rowan Boulevard. Yeah.
All right, but you have not been to Pizza
I have
with the
not
Pros.
been to Pizza with the Pros.
So
yet.
what's your impression of Pizza with the Pros?
This is fantastic. I was waiting for you to give me the call, Neil. I mean, I'm glad that I finally got it. Brian Westbrook next week, though. My goodness, I might have to come back. I think that's another fantastic just guest to have.
So you've been on tour.
Yeah.
I was teasing you because you've been going to all these different schools.
That's right.
So what's the thought process behind all these schools, other than people like myself reaching out and say, "Hey, will you come talk to our students?"
No, I think it's a great question. And to Neil's point, I've been traveling different campuses, speaking to different student bodies. I think that goes back to my upbringing, right? Is I went to Holy Family University, which is a small university in Northeast Philadelphia. And I mean, I loved it. And I picked that program for sports management. But again, it's not necessarily known for sports management. And I realized on that campus that there's so many big schools out there that have tons of great students and things like that, but there's gems on every campus. So when I got my job with the Phillies and in a hiring position in 2015, 2016, we weren't the top of the heap as far as talent on the field, but organically we still get people to come and apply. But I said, you know what, let's go out there. I think the best way to find the best candidates is get out in the public and meet with people. So I've kind of brought that spirit. I went to some winter meetings pre-pandemic and things like that. And that's really the crazy thing about this industry is there's such a demand and desire to get into it that I feel like it's, it has to be on both ends of the table. Like it can't just be us as an organization resting back and saying, all right, we're going to get candidates to come, right? Because it's important to show up for your students and for your workforce, and especially recognize when they show up for you, right? Like you all don't have to be here tonight. There's a lot of other things that are going to take your time. And you all made that choice to come, meet this time. So I think that's a big thing for me is going to these campuses and just interacting with people and getting to meet you and to learn your stories. And I think, if you don't have people that are willing to do that, then how are you going to find those diamonds in the rough?
More students have gotten jobs and internships from their interactions with Pizza with the Pros guests than anything else.
No pressure.
I mean, it's true because they meet you,
Yeah.
and then you create a little relationship. They'll email you, you follow up, and then there might not be an opening this year or next year, whatever, but there's a relationship that begins there, and then it does lead to something, provided the student keeps following up, and you're intrigued by what they have to say, and then boom, they land an internship that could lead to a job.
No, it's a great point. It's one of those things that when I was in your shoes as a student, I didn't understand or grasp what networking is, right? I used to always think that school is kind of like any type of assignment, right? Like, all right, you get your syllabus. What do I need to do to get an A? Okay. And all along the way, I kept hearing professors and say like, oh, you got to network, especially when we're trying to get in the sports industry. I was like, all right, teach, whatever. Like, how do I get an A? And then it wasn't until I got into the working world that I realized, to your point, like it is really networking and it's building those connections. And networking isn't like, oh, there's Ryan who works for the Phillies. I don't work for the Phillies. How do we get a job, right? Networking is having those conversations, showing up, listening, but more than that, networking is your classmates. I think all too often we don't think of each other and our colleagues as our network, but you guys are in fact the next generation. You're the next wave, right? And it's having those conversations, it's working those group projects, and it's seeing the success of your fellow classmates get opportunities and asking, oh, how is that? That's really going to help you 3-4 years down the road, right? And it's not, to Neil's point, it's not like, hey, I met this guy once, I'm going to go cold for a year and then reach out, I applied. It's the random building a conversation, having a shared connection, and utilizing the fact that you guys are students, right? I say all the time, in our industry, we want to constantly push it forward and we want good quality people. To work in baseball it's a vocation, not necessarily a job, right? There's long hours, long demands. You either love it or you don't. And you're going to get pushed, you're going to get tested in a lot of different ways. But if you figure that out along the way and you get that bug, there's no better reward and there's no better frustration when it keeps moving and moving away. So that's why you have that network to lean on and keep those conversations. So Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like, it's having these conversations, it's getting out there, getting to know each other, and keeping just the ball moving.
So I want to, one last question for me before we open up. They have plenty of questions for you. Let's go back to your junior year at Holy Family.
Yeah.
That representative for the Philadelphia Phantoms came into your class, and what triggered your thought saying, I think I want to get involved in the sports industry?
Yeah, so I do have to make a little addendum to that. It was my junior year of high school, which is even wild.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know that.
So yeah,
Okay.
so it was my junior year of high school. We had a career day. So again, I'm born and raised in Northeast Philadelphia. I wanted to be a Philly my whole life. Now I thought I was going to be, a Philly. Realized around that same time that I wasn't going to be a Philly. My talent was going to get me there. And we were just having a lot. And again, look, you guys have all gone through it, trying to figure out what am I going to do with my life. That's such a big, grand question. And as luck would have it, proud father, Judge High School, Northeast Philly, had a career day, and we had a gentleman come through. And he was telling me, what he does, and essentially what he did sounded amazing. He was a salesman by day. He was calling people, selling tickets for the Philadelphia Phantoms, which was the Flyers affiliate that played at the Spectrum. But by night, he was a mascot. I said, holy God, that is the coolest thing ever. This guy gets to be out and about. He's in a mascot costume. And that's when it clicked for me that, wow, you can work in sports and not be one of the guys that you see on the bench, or on the field, right? And again, to call it naive, call it just being, a high school kid, I didn't put two and two together. And that's when I was like, all right, well, now I got to look for sports management programs. And that's where, Holy Family comes into my story is my mom had gone to Holy Family, my sisters, my brother, but all for what Holy Family is known for, which is more education and nursing. And here I am trying to be this business guy, and I found out they had a sports management program in marketing and management. And as luck would have it, my path took me there, and it kind of hit. Now, again, I didn't necessarily know what I was going to do in sports. I just knew that, oh, wow, I got to learn more. And that sounds like a really cool opportunity. And it seems like, wow, that really aligns with what me. It's very dual, like you can do a lot of different things. You have the duality of not just doing one thing over and over again, which was exciting.
Did you play baseball, Father Judge?
I did, but then an injury caught up with me. So then I was like, all right, that's where I had to hang it up.
I was wondering if it was you couldn't hurt the curveball or it was an injury.
It was the curveball and injury. I'll play both.
It was both.
It was definitely both.
All right, let's open up questions. Who would like to go first with Ryan? Go ahead, Antoinette.
So you oversee the internship applications and stuff for the Phillies. What stands out to you on an internship application? Of course, you hear experience and not just good grades, but what is something that really kind of hits the head on the nail for you on an application?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. No, I'll say I'm lucky enough I have two different intern programs I oversee. We have one that's more of a traditional internship, right? It's undergraduate, it's more targeted for juniors and seniors. And in that role, I often say I'm trying to build floors, right? In the sense of, there's not going to be one common thread that I'm going to see on an application or a resume because that role itself is such a generalist position. It's rooted in customer service and ticket sales, but it's not like the most salesy of role, right? Where I don't expect you to have this great Rolodex of, contacts and things like that. Now, on the flip side, I oversee a post-grad sales associate internship. Now, that word internship can scare some people off. I often explain it. It's, the main difference between someone in my sales associate program and myself, it's twofold. One, you're contracted, so you have an end date when you start. And then number two, you can't get a 401k. Now, again, you're 20-something-year-olds, who cares what a 401k, right? I was in the same way, who cares? But you can get healthcare benefits, your salary, you get paid all that stuff. And the way that that's designed, I often kind of liken it to sports. It's a one-year free agent prove-it deal, right? Where you're going to come in and you're really going to get a general sales experience. You're going to be selling season tickets, group tickets, servicing our accounts and things of that nature. So when I look at your question, I think for the ticket services route, I'm looking more for just any type of experience that's going to show that you've done some front-facing customer service work, right? I don't necessarily think that you need to have this great, sales, background or anything truly deep-rooted in sports. Now, the sales associate position, I am looking for a little bit more like outbound type of sales work because that's more aligned with that job. So yeah, hopefully that's a good answer for it.
Yeah.
What's the retention of students from the undergrad that end up going to that post-grad position?
That's a great question. I mean, for me, I'm a big believer in pipeline progression, right? I like to kind of invest in talent. I like to spend time and see what's going to pop. Now, the cool thing about ticket services and that program in general is it is so well-rounded that it gives you little snippets and exposure to different departments that sometimes people are going to realize, oh, I don't want to go forward in that sales office, right? I'd rather go communication route. I'd rather do something business that way. But then on the flip side, the people that are like, wow, I really enjoy talking to our fans. I enjoy having these conversations. It's really problem solving. They really have a great, advantage. So I would say, look, if we're hiring 12, at a given cycle, you're probably going to look at half that group's going to be internal, just naturally promoted because, hey, they're taking those inbound phone calls. They're used that way. And also you want to have candidates from the outside to get that new infusion of blood as well. Yeah, Dylan Siddiqui is an amazing guy, proud Rowan alum. Neil and I often, we were just talking about how great he was. I was joking about, he's 25 going on 70. He's that mature. And if he was here, he would definitely know how to say that. So Dylan was very pragmatic. He, was very cut and dry with what he wanted to do. He graduated from Rowan with a communications degree. He actually got a job. He was working at a newspaper. And he and I were, conversing about ticket services. And something clicked with him at that job. He was like, you know what, this is not for me. It's not going to be the path. And he bet on himself. He rolled the dice. He decided, you know what, let's bet with Ryan. Let's see what this program is about. So he came in. And again, excellent opportunity. When he started with us, it was in 22. So we were just coming back out of the pandemic. We hadn't made the postseason yet. It's still one of those things that we're trying to attain. And he's very matter of fact, very well spoken. And he had that, that discerning quality of like, yeah, I'll do it. Not the wait, what is it type of mentality. He's like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll happy to help out. And I often try to, manage and coach my team to match you with your passion and your experience, right? And if you're busting it for me and the work at hand, I'm gonna do my best to bust it for you as well. So as luck would have it, we're still building back from a pandemic. We're not as full staffed as we were back in like 2019. So that's where the other departments start to ask you questions. Like, hey, can I have somebody help me out here or there? I said, okay, fine. So Dylan naturally was a good fit for the business side. They needed some business communication help. And then Dylan being, who he is, started not only help on the business side, he started to help on the baseball side. And I mean, now this guy is a feature columnist in our Phillies magazine. He's, in the clubhouse. He's on the road with our guys. And I think that's all because he bet on himself and took a job answering the phones. And it's him answering a phone call with the same care that writing an article or doing the things that he actually aligned with that kind of helped him pop to get where he is. And yeah, he's a stud.
Third year full-time with the Phillies. In 22, he got hired later that summer full-time when there was an opening in baseball communications. When the Phillies went to the World Series, he traveled with the team with baseball communications for the Phillies. That's a heck of a story. But it all began because he bet on himself, as Ryan said, and he tried sales. And by the way, you might end up really liking sales if you're really personable. Now, he was a broadcaster here, so he had that ability to think of his feed and be able to communicate with people really well. And it worked.
Absolutely.
And it worked. All right, so keep that in mind. All right, next question for Ryan. Where are you? Right here. Go ahead.
Oh, so I'm pretty sure it was said in the flyer that you've worked there since 2011.
Yeah.
How has your role in the ticket sales changed since 2011?
That's a great question. If everybody can indulge me in a little bit of a long story, I'll tell you the narrative of me with the Phillies, right? So, again, born and raised Philadelphian, always wanted to be a Philly. As I alluded to, I found out I wasn't going to be a Philly. But as luck would have it, I was taking a facilities class at Holy Family, and my professor happened to work down at the ballpark, and he's still with us. He's a vice president of security. His name's Sal DeAngelis. Great guy. And I was like, all right, you know what? There's a guy that's working at the organization I want to work at. So A, I'm going to ace this class. I'm going to be, as on the ball as I can be. And B, I'm going to take it upon myself to try to build that relationship and ask questions. And look, you've got Neil. That's an amazing resource right here to ask these types of questions. So I talked to Sal and I said, hey, look, I want to eventually get down to the Phillies. How do we get there? He says, look, Ryan, I started as a security guard. I think you can apply for day game position. Here you go. I can give you the application, but that's it, right? He's not going to give you the job. So filled out the application, interviewed. I thought I was going to get a security job. Honestly, I thought, all right, I fit the bill. But no, they actually hired me to premium services. So premium services, I come to find out, it's being an usher, right? It's a host, but it's in our most premium locations. So Diamond Club, now the Ranking Club will make sponsorship happy, Hall of Fame Club, Suite Level, and things like that, right? So I did that. And you would have thought I was the general manager, right? I was the happiest dude coming to the office, and all I was doing was working day game, job. And as I'm doing that, I graduate college. Okay, well, how do I get to the next step, right? So I found out about the post-grad sales program. So I got hired to that. It wasn't called the associate program at that time. It was just, our sales internship. So I got hired in 2011, and then that wrapped around to 2012. Awesome experience. I was part of a sales team that sold out 257 consecutive games at the ballpark, which I don't think we're going to get to that number again with consumer behavior. But it was an awesome experience. And then it all came crashing down in the 2011 postseason, right, with Ryan Howard getting knocked out, the injury. And then 2012 was the first year that we didn't make the playoffs after that beautiful 5-year run. And, that's where I kind of saw the sales tactics starting to shift a little bit, right? Is the sellout was not happening anymore. And we were kind of a victim of our own success. Because at that point, consumer behavior starts to, hey, they're sold out, let me go to the secondary market, so on and so forth. So you're trying to make these outbound campaigns that people buy from you. So I thought, look, I'm busting it, doing the best that I can. I haven't taken a sick day, I haven't taken a vacation day. Like, I'm doing everything in my power. And then, it's like yesterday. We were working a Bruce Springsteen concert, Phillies were down in Atlanta, Papelbon gave up a home run, and there goes our faint playoff hopes. And my boss called me in a few days later and just basically said, all right, guys, great job, but you're done October 12th. So that was really devastating, right? It's like, look, I've done everything in my power. I've worked as hard as I can. I thought I'm doing it the right way. I'm climbing the ladder. And I intentionally didn't really lean on Sal too much that year. I didn't want it to be, kind of think that I'm just, riding this guy's coattails. We worked in different departments. But at that point, I just wanted to reach out and have a conversation. So he called me in his office, like, look, Ryan, I've heard nothing but great things about, you and your work ethic. It's just a numbers game. And as silly as that sounds, that really changed everything for me. That was a lightning, rod moment. And I often tell people, look, when the Phillies break spring training, there's 26 guys on the roster. If you have the 27th best camp, you're not on the roster. It's a numbers game, right? So that kind of, it really shifted my mindset. It made me feel good about, my experience. It made me feel good that, okay, you know what? You got to control your controllables. There's certain things outside your control, so keep your head up high. As luck would have it, I turned down a full-time job in insurance sales the following week. My family thought I was crazy. They were not wrong. I was unemployed for a few months. I was interviewing in different places, and I ended up getting another opportunity to go back to the Phillies. So similar opportunity, post-grad role, but it wasn't in the sales office. It was in our merchandise department. And I did that in 2013. It was an amazing opportunity. It's something that I didn't even know existed until I got a phone call and I interviewed for it. That role was awesome. I also said it was my light blue collar job, right? Is where I got to help design giveaways. I got to hop on a forklift and put all the promotional items out the gates. But I was a year removed from that last experience. So I was like, okay, as that's winding down, I feel great about this. I'm designing different, programs. I feel like, wow, I could see myself staying here permanently, but gotta have a plan B. I can't go through what I just went through. I have to have a plan B. So, they'll often tell you sales is the doorway in. And I knew, having done sales, I actually liked it, and I like doing group sales. So the Wells Fargo Center, Xfinity Mobile Arena now, was hiring for Comcast Magic Word, a group account exec. So I went through the interview process, and they gave me the offer. But I was like, you know what? Before I leave, I'm going to pitch myself to the Phillies, right? So I give my director, Scott Brand, with all the credit in the world. He took the meeting. I had wrote up a job description, and I said, okay, Scott, theme nights are the way of the future. Now, theme night, for the people that know it now, it's a pop culture idea like a Star Wars, right? And you're going to blend it together with a ticketing package and all great stuff. Back in 2013, theme nights were more like a West Coast thing, right? You'd only see the Giants or the Angels. So here I am, some 20-something-year-old kid telling our director of merchandise basically where the industry's going to go. And to his credit, he doesn't laugh me out the room. He's like, get out of here, kid. He's like, Ryan's like, look, I agree with you. That's where it's going. We're not there yet. Take the other job. So here I am, yet again, getting let go with the Phillies. Quick on my feet, I said, well, hold on, Scott. Can I go back to being a day game employee? Can you bring me on as a supervisor? He said, yeah, I'll work on the paperwork. So Phillies let me go again at the end of that experience. I go work full-time across the street at the Wells Fargo Center, group sales account exec, right? Now, as luck would have it, I didn't realize it. I said to Scott, I want to finish my commitments, work the Black Friday sale, which we call Red Friday, our winter sale, and he invited me to the Phillies holiday party. I said, oh, that's a great honor. Not everybody's good at the holiday party. Well, I ended up winning our Oregon Team of the Year award at that holiday party. That's to this day one of the most impactful moments. I got a standing ovation. David Montgomery, rest in peace, great guy, gave me the award. It's named after Penny DiMuzio, who is Phillies royalty. She worked in merchandise for all these years. So I really felt validated, but also, staying a little bit because here I am not a full-time employee there. But again, I had to remember, look, it's a numbers game. At that point, they're not necessarily in a high tide, type of season to keep hiring people. That window is closing. You got to figure out your business practices. So I go and building my career across the street at the Wells Fargo Center, selling everything but flyers and Sixers. So I'm a family show account exec. I'm selling like Disney on Ice, Sesame Street Live, Globetrotters, circus, you name it. And I kind of got into a rhythm of like, okay, I'm going to challenge myself, competitive. What can I do? What can I sell? So I picked a little Step Africa show at the Temple Performing Arts Center. And I was like, all right, let me get creative, see what I can do. Let's move the needle here. Because I thought to myself, oh, anybody can sell Disney, but who can sell this, right? So I got creative, and that was the cool thing about that job, is I was able to have more autonomy. I got together with the North Philly dance studio that I worked with previously, ended up negotiating with the show to have her dance studio and the kids involved become a de facto opening act. So it was an awesome success. I ended up selling about 70% of the revenue for the entire show. Like, I feel like, oh, this is great. And then it leads to like a week later, like a scene out of the movie, my boss at the time slides over a job description. It's director of group sales at a position up in Massachusetts. He goes, Rye, you're ready. This is great. Take a look at this. Let me know by 2:00 in the afternoon. I said, oh my God, I got 6 hours to figure this out. And I'd never been there. It's in Lowell, Massachusetts. And if anybody, the only reference I have of Lowell, Massachusetts is Christian Bale's movie The Fighter, which seems like a little rough and tumble kind of town. I remember Googling it, and they were talking about like the cost of living is really expensive and all that stuff. So I was like, oh, I don't know. And I just started a relationship, and I was like, I think this is going to, work out pretty well. Spoiler alert, she's my wife. It's been working out. So I had to make that decision, and I turned it down. And again, here I am, another brash young 20-year-old, or 20-something, I should say. And I told my boss, and that was a really difficult conversation because he sees it from, you're crazy. You're an account executive. You can be a director at a building at this, age 25, and you're telling me no. Why? Like, what are you doing, right? And again, I get it from his perspective, but I said, look, to me, it's all about fit. And if this job was at the Leah Core Center or somewhere more locally where I had some ties, it's a slam dunk. But let's figure it out. But that's what really started some aching in my heart to be like, what am I doing here? And I think that's where I had like a quarter life crisis, for lack of a better term, because I started to realize that my commute was the same every day, but I was making a left instead of the right at the ballpark. And I'm like, you know what? They know me. Being here is not going to get me over there anymore, right? And I kind of proved myself I can do this. So what am I doing with my life? What do I want to do? So that's where I've really made a sharp left turn in my entire career. I was like, you know what? I'm working seasonally with the Phillies. Maybe that's my story. Maybe I'm just going to be, a day-game employee at the Phillies for 25, 30 years, and there's no shame in that. That's awesome. It's needed. And I'll build a career elsewhere. So I ended up getting hired at Drexel University in enrollment management, higher education. That was, again, a sharp pivot, but I took it for two reasons. One, it gave me the opportunity to be a manager. It gave me the opportunity to work with college students, to run a college call center, to then also work with professional coordinators. The tricky thing there is the woman who hired me got let go within a week. Our entire department reorganized within a month. So I went from being the new guy to kind of help rebuild a whole department and things like that. So big learning curve. I often joke, dog years are 7 years. I think dragon years are 8 or so. So I got a lot of valuable experience. And I really started to figure out, okay, now I know what I like to do. I like to help, college age people. I like to help people kind of, find their way. Because it was cool, right? There was a job to be done. And the college students were calling kids to come, visit the campus, fill out the application. But it was more than that. It was career development. It was really having those conversations, and it opened the door for me to, get my master's degree. And then keeping that network strong. So working a Billy Joel concert of all things down at the ballpark. And I ran into a guy that I used to work with. And he's like, oh, like you're still at the Wells Fargo Center? I said, no, I explained what I was doing. He's like, oh, Phil's number 2 left. Now, Phil Feather, the great Phil Feather, was our director of ticket services. So he ran the college call center at the Phillies. I said, wait a minute, his number 2's gone? I'm running a college call center. Like, this stars are starting to align. Now, it wasn't an overnight success. There was a lot of years and things like that. And I found out about this in May, and I didn't get brought back into the Phillies until November of that year. So it's a lot of betting on yourself, a lot of patience, conversations. And at that point, too, building my career at Drexel, I got to a point I was up for promotion. And timing's everything. Because if I would have gotten that promotion, it would have paid me double of what I went to the Phillies for, and I would have worked half the hours. But I'll never forget, I was down in their conference room down in the ballpark, and I was interviewing with my former boss, soon to become my future boss. And I said to him, look, I'm going to crossroad my life. I can either chase my passion or I can chase the paycheck. I'm going to still bet on myself and follow my heart. And don't give that as negotiating tactic. I wouldn't say do that. But it worked out. It was from a place of truth. So that's kind of when I came back into the fray. Now, again, long-winded answer for your initial question, so thanks for hanging with me. But I think it's important to give that context, right? So here I am. I joined the organization at a high mark as far as sales goes, had a scratch and call to get back into a permanent role. And here I am in 15, 16, building it back from scratch. Now, you got to remember, in 16, we weren't a great product on the field. And we really started to invest, and our ownership was great to invest in the ballpark and develop these areas like Anthony Figazzato's yard and all those types of things. That it really was a great opportunity to be with the organization and to meet and have these conversations and to kind of grow and to build things. And that's where I was able to kind of see that pipeline of progression and say, you know what, let's kind of figure it out. And as some staffing things happened, I ended up pursuing responsibility of the sales associate program that I once got let go from. I took over that. I changed the name of that program to sales associate because before, your business card would have been the same if you graduated from that program and got full time. So it's like, you need to have a pipeline, right? And then I started to see, okay, now we really need to work on our sales process, right? We've got this great feeder of internships and things like that for the whole organization, but what are we doing to kind of get people out to the ballpark, right? Because at that point, the team itself wasn't driving the force. Now, we got lucky with Bryce Harper coming and joining us in 19. That really got the energy back into place. But I was able to pitch the idea of let's launch an inside sales program, right? To kind of be this midway between ticket service and our sales associate. And there's a gentleman I often think of. He does great things, but I say he was the Tim Tebow of ticket services, right? This guy was a superstar. Put his name in the rafters, all-star, Hall of Fame ticket service employee. And then he jumped over our sales associate program, and I could see the light starting to come out of his eyes, right? Because everything that made him great in ticket services was not being on the phones, right? So he could have been a good salesman. I have no doubt about that in my mind. But ultimately, we got lucky enough where there's an opportunity in our community outreach department for him to jump. And that's where I said, you know what? We need to find a way to kind of have a more fine-tuned way to identify, do you really want to do sales, right? So that's where I pitched an inside sales program targeting, December grads or people that have big internship requirements their senior year. It was awesome. The only problem was we launched that program in 2020. So not a good year to launch a program. So the world kind of ended. We did right with that group. Essentially just kept them on, stopped doing outbound sales, did a lot of data cleanup and things like that. And then come 21, the great Phil Feather took an early retirement. He's now doing great things with Cairn University as a professor. And I was tasked to rebuild ticket services from scratch for people and build it from there. And we got the inside sales program up and running. And I've turned it over to different people in our group. But it is great to see that, just as the business was getting back in 21, we went on that magic carpet ride in 2022. And now it's one of those situations where we've been fortunate enough to be in the postseason for 4 years in a row. And we have the All-Star game this year. So it's not as much as hey, come to a ballpark. It's okay, how are we going to find right fit? So I think that's where the business is kind of trending, and it's really diversifying your offerings. And it goes back to in 2011, you're buying a ticket to go to the Phillies game, and you're going to lock in, right? And you're going to sit in a seat, and that was going to be it. Well, we did all those renovations in 16 and 17. It's more about the consumer, right? How many of you guys are just going to go to a game and just sit at a seat and for 9 innings and that's that, right? I got one. You're gonna mostly kind of walk around and experience all the different things. So that's kind of where we have to kind of take our thoughts and where can we meet you guys and the baseball fan now, and kind of make that experience all the better. So long answer. Thanks for hanging with me. But I think it's important, right? And I like to share that story of how I've gotten there because that's what you're all faced with. If you want to work in sports, you're faced with adversity at every turn. It's the old cliche. You're going to be in Cooperstown if you fail 7 out of 10 times, right? But there's truth in that. It took me how many years, how many opportunities to just work, and not there, and not give up. And that's why I said earlier, it's a vocation, right? You got to understand, what is it? What is that nagging driving force about working in baseball? And it just, you have it or you don't. And I have it.
You better enjoy baseball if you can be working at baseball all the time. All right. Next question. Go ahead, Noah.
This is a two-part question. So my family has had season tickets since 1999, and we've never won Fan Appreciation Day. So my question is, how do they pick who wins the prizes? And my second part of the question is there any news on All-Star Game tickets yet? Or when is that coming
So
out?
we'll start with the fan appreciation ticket. He wants to give the man something.
Yeah, right?
And then the next one is All-Star Game tickets.
Well, look, we appreciate you and thank you for being a season ticket holder.
I get your emails too.
Your family. They're not from me.
Your name and,
Says Ryan Simon in the signature?
think so.
No way. It probably says
Sometimes.
Derek Schuster.
well,
He's a
maybe-
big wig.
Maybe it's you and him sometimes.
Well, I got to talk to Derek about that. But no, in all seriousness, that's awesome. Your family's been, season ticket holders from the vet all the way through every year.
Yeah.
Fan appreciation, that's more of our in-game promo team that handles all that type of stuff. To my understanding, they're going to try to, randomize it. So it's a random thing. You want to have it for what I classify as like Jane and Joe fan, right? You want to have anybody that comes off the street. Just because you don't have the bandwidth to buy a season ticket package doesn't mean you shouldn't win a fan appreciation game, right? But on the flip side, I don't want to discredit you from being a season ticket holder and not winning, right? So I just think it's one of those random things of like, have you gotten a foul ball?
I did when I was younger.
Okay. See, but again, you've been at the ballpark for 26, years. You've got one ball. So I think it's just the same type
I
of thing.
got one 2 years ago that rolled to me in the stands.
There you go.
Yeah.
So again, that's as rare, if not more rare, I think, than like a fan appreciation prize, right? And you've got even more opportunity because there's foul balls every game. So I
All right,
think
just
it's
put the man on the top of the list. Get the man his fan
Where are your seats
appreciation
at?
gift.
Where are your seats at?
115.
150.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You got great seats.
I was there. I think I've been to 40 games this past season.
The man's been to 40 games in session 115.
I got to get you a rally tower or
Come on,
something.
come on.
man.
Yeah,
I gotta get you some.
Give him a pen or something. Give him a pen.
All right, we'll find a pen.
All right,
We'll find a
all right, next question
And then
he had was about the
All-Star
All-Star
game. All-Star game information will be forthcoming. We're still working through it now. All-Star game, it's one of those situations where it's not a Phillies run event. It's a
Yeah, that's
Major
what
League
they told
Baseball.
my dad.
Yeah, it's a crown event. It's a jewel event of Major League Baseball, right? And you got to remember, it's not the Phillies just putting this on. There's 30 other clubs. So you've got 30 total teams. They're going to have tickets and things like that. So we're going to try our best to help our season ticket holders get there. But the other thing that's unique about the Phillies is what plan do you have?
The Sunday game plan.
So Sunday plan is awesome, and it's one of the best things that we do. Is our most popular partial because it's really family oriented, right? And you've had it since you're a little kid. But Major League Baseball doesn't love that we have a Sunday plan because it's not even a quarter of 81 games, right? Our Sunday plans are either 13 or 14 games. So that's where it really gets tricky, and this is where it becomes a delicate balance of, okay, how do you service your community? How do you service your fan base? And then also accommodate, there's going to be too many mouths to feed, right? In the sense of, okay, in our industry, we call FSEs, so it's a full season equivalent. One FSE is one full season package, right? Meaning that you've got a ticket to every home, all 81 games. Another FSE is 5 partials, which is 80 games, because we don't have any opening day on a partial, right? So for easy math, let's just say if we had 25,000 FSEs, 15,000 of those are full seasons, right? Then you've got 10,000 accounts, which really become 50,000 people because it's over 5 partial plans. So now you've got over 70,000 people to fill a 43,000 person ballpark, and not accounting for your group leaders or your Jane and Joe fan. That's where the numbers become really tricky, and especially in an all-star environment, it's not our full complement of seats, because we're going to have to turn some seats over to the other 29 teams. We're going to have to turn seats over for the increased media and sponsors and things like that. So that's why it's a big puzzle. We've been working through it. We're trying to get to a point where, okay, how can we give our fans the best offer? And also understand the difference and the nuance of someone who's a partial Sunday like yourself versus someone who's a full since 1976.
Yeah.
Like, so that's why a lot
My
more.
family made me ask.
No, a great question.
And my friends.
A lot more smarter people, I'd say, are working on those, those numbers and things like that. But we will hope to communicate information sooner rather than later.
Thank you.
And the pen is in the mail.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ian.
What is your best advice for having longevity and consistency in sports?
Longevity and consistency in sports. What's your advice?
I think for me personally, I have a 3H test, right? It's hungry, happy, healthy. All right. So do you wake up with a drive? Do you have a fire in your stomach to do the work that you're doing? Are you happy with who you are, what you're doing? Just are you making a positive impact, right? When I was a kid, as silly as it sounds, I used to be like, all right, my goal is to make one person smile today. And if you have that type of little goal, and again, I think that's the power of sports, right? Is you like to have challenges, you like to set these things. So be honest with that, right? And then the last one's healthy, right? How are you doing? Like mentally, physically? I feel like your generation is great as far as raising the awareness of mental health and driving through. So you have to touch base with yourself, right? Check your 3H's. Now, there are going to be times in life you're going to be on an E and 2 of those H's, right? Or maybe you're running on empty on all 3. Or you're going to find that you're empty on all 3 of those, right? But that's where it goes back to, is this a forever thing or is this a temporary thing? And I think if you're realizing that, like, hey, I'm low on these 3H's and I don't see a way out of it, the way out of it is changing your career path, right? So I think for me, that's a personal thing to keep motivated and keep consistent. Happiness is going to be fleeting, right? You're going to have highs and lows, and you can't tie your joy to the on-field success. You have to find, your happiness somewhere else. For me, it's opening doors for like Dylan Siddiqui and those people in the world, right? I'm just a glorified doorman. I get to open doors. It's on you to run through it and do what you will, right? And I take joy in that. I love that. The healthy thing is tricky because, again, I'm a workaholic by nature, as we alluded to. I've been on tour. Like, I've been traveling. But I love that. I crave it. And it's like an energy, right? It's a drain, but it also is a refeeder. And then just hungry. And I think just constantly looking at how are you improving yourself, your day-to-day, the people around you, and what you can do. So for me, that's how I do it. I hope I'm consistent. I try to set the tone. I try to be a positive influence. And more than anything, just be real and authentic with people. And also understand, like I tell my employees all the time, we're going to have an emotional bank, right? You're not going to be hitting 3 home runs every game. That's unattainable, right? You're going to have those days where you're going to go on cold spells and things like that. But as long as we can have a good conversation, we can touch base, we can work together, and you're not riding that highs or lows, then you'll be okay. If you start to focus on process over results, that's another one of those little, again, mind changes. But if you start to work on your process, the results will come. If you don't have a process, you can luck into results. Broken clock is right twice a day. But if I don't know how to tell time, so that's how you're going to build your process, right? So I think that's the key for me to keep consistency.
All right, very good. Next question. Here we go. Well, go ahead. Gerasimo's first, then we'll go over here.
You mentioned that you have had a lot of, you start with the Phillies, you had a little roadblock in the middle where you kind of were doing a whole bunch of stuff professional, obviously.
Sure.
All over the place. You're back at the Phillies now. Are you satisfied with where you are, or do you want to get another position in the future?
That's a great question, and that's something that I think I've grappled with. If you look in the multiverse, if I go back to that decision and I don't turn down that director job, there's a timeline somewhere where I honestly feel like I'm not working in baseball, but I'm like a vice president of a building somewhere, right? Whether that's on the operations side or the sales side, and I may be happy, right? But I wouldn't have the family that I have, and I wouldn't have that, right? And then I flip back over here. Yeah, I've hit roadblocks, and I've hit frustrations as far as like my title hasn't changed. For all that I've done, I haven't had a title change in 6 years, right? And I'd be lying to say that doesn't bother you. It did for a time. And I had to go through that soul searching. Okay, well, at the end of the day, what's more important? Is it what's the title on your card or what's the impact you get to have? And I circle back to the impact, right? And that's why For me, I think it's constantly evolving, and you're never going to stagnate, right? If you're going to stagnate in this job, you're going to get left behind. But I think that kind of manifests itself in a different way. So I've kind of let go of the idea of I need to have a certain title or I need to have a certain salary, by this age or so on and so forth, right? But on the flip side, I think it's like, okay, how am I going to, open more doors? How am I going to improve our process? How am I going to, make the experience of working for me better in this year as opposed to last year? And, I'm a big believer. I don't want to be rigid. I have things that I think work, but I also have to understand that every year, every cycle is a new team. It's a new season, right? So just because something worked last year doesn't mean it's going to work with this group of employees next year, right? So I think that's a challenge unto itself, is really trying to not fall into the idea of, okay, well, I really loved working with you, so now 3 years from now I have to find a guy that's exactly like you. No one's exactly like you. You're your own person, right? So I think that's why, if you talk to my number 2, Caroline, sometimes I'll interview people and I say, okay, give me your comp, right? In the sense of like, okay, well, they remind me of so-and-so, like they've got Dylan's, ingenuity, and they've got, Anthony's sense of humor, or whatever the case would be. Like, I'm like, okay, that's cool, because then I can kind of put in like sports, okay, comps, and I can try to forecast, okay, how's that person gonna blend into this bigger picture? And then you don't know until you know, right? You get in there. So I think, to answer your question is, ask me that question 5 years ago, I would have told you like, yeah, I want to have this title, whatever. But now I'm on this side of it. I want to be satisfied with the work I'm doing, which I am. I'm passionate about what I do, to a fault, I think, at times. And I think that's where I now find those challenges and embrace it that way. Great
Right.
question.
We'll go over here.
So you said that you've been through like many different like jobs and internships and all that. Everyone in their life has like experienced kind of like a how do I put this? Like a mental block, or like how do you kind of get like down on yourself?
Yeah.
And, like, or you get burnt out. Like where did that happen to you at some point if it did, and how did you overcome that?
It's a great question. I think, all along the journey, you have those, and even like when I was doing the job, it wasn't like sunshine and rainbows all the time. Every job's a job, and you're going to have good days and bad days. I think for me, it was realizing that, okay, I didn't fail. I didn't fail when not getting that full-time job. And that's why, I tell my employees now that work for me in my post-grad position, I said, you can't have this going into it, the tunnel vision of, okay, there's 2 results. I either get hired full-time by the Phillies or I get let go. Because if that's how you're going to look at it, you're heading right into burnout, you're heading right into disappointment, right? I always say, shift the mindset. This is your year, this is your opportunity to put yourself in a position to earn a full-time job, but to know the knowledge if you want it or not. And some of my proudest, employee stories are people that opt out of the job, right? I have a guy recently just left me. His name was Bobby. Great guy. He worked for me in ticket services. He grew his career with the sales thing. He could be a great sales guy. He has a skill set. But again, similarly, he kind of got it wrong to the point where I think maybe he was starting to feel the burnout and the stress of the job. And he and I had a decent enough relationship to have those conversations. And now he works full-time at Lincoln Financial as a financial advisor, right? Who would have thought that this guy would have gone working in sports for 3 years and goes there? And I think that's the key. And he embraced what I'm saying, right? So I think you have to kind of change your mindset of, yeah, there's jobs to be done and there's careers to be built. But at the end of the day, it's your life. And you need to keep that narrative flowing to know, okay, am I on the right ladder? Am I climbing towards something that I want to do? And it's okay to kind of have that change, right? So for me, I think it's another big thing of like, you got to identify, define, and protect what your why is. And your why right now in college is going to be different in 10 years, right? And I think it's important to know that it's going to be dynamic and it's okay to change. And if you get to a resolution where, you know what, the dream that I wanted 10 years ago isn't the dream that I have today, let go of that dream. Keep dreaming. And that's a beautiful thing. So I think that's how I avoid, burnout. And when you hit a wall, you have to understand, okay, what's the wall inside of my control and what's outside of my control? And go back to any athlete will tell you, you got to control your controllables, right? And once you start controlling those things, it's going to open up your path to improve.
Baseball's a tough sport. It's virtually every day. During a homestand, it could be like 2 weeks long.
Yeah.
You're working every day. It's in the summer. People are on vacation. You're not. You're working every day.
Yeah.
How do you handle working in a sport like baseball? Because you better love baseball if you're going to work in that sport.
You're not wrong. It's funny, right? I often say, like, catch me in January at like 3 o'clock, I may be running low. Like I may be like, oh man, it's dark outside. But then it could be in the middle of July. I'm on day 18 in a row at the ballpark. But then you got a game at 6:45. And around 3 o'clock, you just get an extra energy. You get that, wow, there's excitement. It's being part of something, right? So I think, to your point, like baseball is just my first love. It's my favorite sport. So I naturally have that. And sometimes people tell you, like, don't work for the sport that you love. You're going to hate it. I know no other way, right? Now, again, I'm not paid to be a fan. I see more Phillies games either on a little TV in my office or when I'm at home and they're on the road. But I keep up with it, and that's the beauty of today's communications. You can read about it, you can watch highlights, all that good stuff. But yeah, I think that's the dedication, right? Is you got to find it. And I love baseball because to me it's the most fair sport in the world, right? Who doesn't like fairness, right? And it's one of those situations like, okay, there's no time possession. You can't play keep away. You can't get one goal and whatever. We all get 27 outs. And you know what? We'll be courteous. We don't need 27. We'll just take 24, right? And it's what you do with it. And it's also you get instant feedback. How's your performance going, right? Did you get on base or not? And that's the cool thing about advanced analytics. You're not just, okay, well, I hit the ball and play and that's a hit. Like, no, now they're getting people that get on base and you're getting all those different things. And it's, you're playing both ways. You're playing defense, you're playing, offense. And it's the most individualized team sport you can imagine. Like, and again, I liken that to the work that my guys do on the phone. We're all part of a team and a collective. We have to know our information. When we get that all-star question, we all need to know how to answer that. But ultimately, it's one-on-one. It's one person on each phone call. It's just like one player in the batter's box, right? So I think you're right. I think you need to love the sport itself. And I also just love what baseball brings, right? It's that day over day. It's that, hey, we didn't go our way today. We'll go after it tomorrow.
All right. Go ahead, Rob.
Could you give us a quick rundown on like your day-to-day, maybe an example of a normal day in the off-season versus the season, and then also how you navigate challenges, if any, managing such a great pool of interns?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, right? So I liken my job to like a college football coach, right? In the sense that I have to recruit, I have to coach, I have to manage, so I have to put schedules in place. And then I often joke, like I face the media after a tough loss, right? It's like when a customer is upset with the answer that they got and they need to talk to somebody, it's me. So I have to sing the presses and smooth things over. So putting that in day-to-day practice, it's coming out to events like this. It's trying to meet the next generation of people. I think that's important. And I have more of a bandwidth to do that in the quote-unquote off-season, right? When there's not a 6:45 game that I'm up against. But I also think like the challenges too is like, okay, how do I get my staff engaged? How do I get them pulling on the same rope when you don't have that benefit of like a 6:45 game? And that's where, I try to be as open as I can be to new ideas and feedback. There are certain things that we need to get done. And that's why I say, look, there's a job you have to do for the Phillies, but there's a job as your manager that I have to do for you, especially in these roles, right? You're essentially, again, to use my college coaching analogy, no one's building a career in ticket services or the sales associate program. It's like a college athlete that has an eligibility window. It's on you to maximize that window, and it's on me to try to help you do that, right? So I find that engaging, but I'm also a realist. I'm not going to be on your butt every morning, like, all right, you got to do this, and like there's a work, and I think it's one of those situations. So the day in and day out is going to change. I mean, I'm doing a lot more logistics and scheduling in season because I'm also coordinating my staff requests from the organization and then aggregating what the sales office is doing on a game night, what group sales is doing, and I have to send out this big master calendar so we have a finger on the pulse. And then the off season, it's a lot of interviewing, it's a lot of speaking engagements, and it's also a lot of training, right? Because I'm going to have to get this new group in the building up and running. And then the turnaround time is crazy. You'll be an employee for like a month, and you feel like, wow, the first week I have no clue what I'm doing. But by like week 5, you're the old veteran on the block, right? And you're gonna feel like, wow, I've gotten it's a repetition game. So that's kind of the ebbs and flow.
All right, good, Shane.
In 10 years, where do you see the future of ticket services?
That's an excellent question. Really good question. I think ticket services is going to continue to evolve. I view ticket services as more as a fan services type of thing, and I think it's an employee development program. I think ticketing and what we do has changed so much as far as the ticket offerings we do and then the consumer behavior, right? How many, like, just quick show of hands, who calls up to buy tickets over the phone?
One person put
yeah,
their hand.
right? Like, so I feel like a lot of you, and I understand it, you go on a website, you click, right? So now that's why Ticket Sitters is important, because it's helping you walk through what you just purchased that maybe you didn't understand. And it's also having those conversations. But I also see that, okay, maybe AI is going to get into a space where it's going to kind of have those quick, FAQs and things like that. So I really hope to see this evolve and stay in the place to just advocate and to improve the fan experience. And maybe it's a situation where we have more of a presence throughout the game, throughout the ballpark, right? I have a vision where I would love to have some of my staff kind of have quadrants and kind of, going back to my roots as an usher and kind of having somebody that's working to kind of just like touching base with our day-to-game employees, like, hey, how's it going? And then quantifying that in the background for the fan experience, right? So we can say, hey, look, he's been at every game on a season package. Maybe he's not going to win the Fan Appreciation Day prize, but let's make sure he feels appreciated, because we do appreciate him and everything that he's done. So I think, it'd be naive of me to think that like, oh, it's going to be the same.
Yeah.
And it's also naive of me to think that I know exactly where it's going. But I definitely think just sports in general is all about the experience. And you want to make sure that I think this group is going to forever be in place to make sure that our fans are getting a good experience.
How many people do call on the phone?
That's a great question. We do, this time of year, it's not as much you would think. Now, once we start to go on sale with things, we have our group sales coming up. We could touch thousands. Like, it's, especially with a group sale, it's more of a long drawn out conversation. We used to get slammed on bad weather days. Because again, everybody's question when there's a drop of rain in the forecast, is the game on? Is the game on, right? So one of the modifications we did a few years ago was we changed the phone tree. So again, T-Mac is amazing. He's the voice of our phone system, except on those times where we need to kind of make quick adjustments, then it's me. So I'm like T-Mac's understudy. So like I'll come on and I'll just talk about like, all right, yeah, the game's still on its plate and all that type of stuff. Like the game's still on a schedule. And that really has changed a lot of our volume. But come postseason, I had one employee of mine, he like set the record. He answered himself 1,050 calls. Now again, it was funny because this guy was just
on one day?
In one day.
Can you talk to 1,000+ people in one day?
Yeah, it was in 2022. Everyone wanted baseball tickets for Phillies. Now it was a quick conversation. No, we don't have any tickets. And it was great. He was very. He got to a point where I think he was set that goal for 1,000. I remember I looked and I called him in my office and I said, hey, he was like, oh, I said, you need 3 more calls. He's like, oh, really? I said, you're at 1,047. It's a lot better if you get to a round number. He's like, all right. Gonna really beat the goal. But yeah, that's a quick conversation. Do you have any tickets? No, we're sold out. Just keep going.
Amazing. All right. Anybody question? Right here.
How does mentality and the personality of a former athlete correlate to your job today?
That's a great question. And it's stunning to me the amount of athletes that I interview that hide the fact that they're athletes. Like I had someone talk to me the other day and they're like, oh, you know what? I really thought I was underprepared coming in this role because I talked to other people and I realized, wow, they had all this work experience. I said, what are you talking about? You were a 4-year college softball player. Like, I think that mentality is everything because being an athlete, you have to have dedication. You're showing that. And again, especially, look, the people that get to make it to the pros and the people that get to play D1 are like the smallest of exceptions, right? It's the people like me that are playing flag football at college, right? That are really showing that, hey, I am dedicated to doing something, but I'm even more dedicated to following my passion. I think that's the key of an athlete mindset, right? It's like, hey, I'm willing to put in the hard work, but I'm also willing to work hard for things that I care about. And I think that's the things that are going to be life skills that are going to help you in a job and out of a job is knowing that, you know what? Control your controllables. Certain things are going to be outside of your control. Do the best that you can to roll with it. Don't get too high. Don't get too low. All those lessons that you learn in sports because, we all wish we could have got that at bat back, or you all wish that you didn't make that error. And then you also have those days where you make an unassisted double play and you're like, wow, that was amazing. I got to be that guy to do that, right? So I think that's the key is having that mindset and knowing that, okay, I know how to get a job done. I know how to work towards a goal that other people may think I'm silly, right? Like, why do you care so much? This isn't the NFL. It's just flag football. Well, because everybody on the field, this is fun. This is what we want to do, and I don't want to let my teammates down. So I think, being part of a team is critical.
So let's end on this note. We talked earlier about internships. What is the process that you're going to go through now? This is the time of year you do it.
Yeah.
So share with how they can maybe get involved.
Yeah, no, excellent question. So when it comes to ticket services, and again, that's more of my juniors and senior undergrad internship, I'll have to say there's like 3 primary influx of talent. I usually bring people on in January. So this time of year, I'm interviewing people that have those big internship requirements, or their schedule's open enough that they can juggle that and give me like 3 days in the office, so on and so forth.
In the office.
Correct. So it's at the ballpark. That's the key. We don't do any remote things in ticket services outside of like an old school remote, right? Where you're going on location somewhere. So that's kind of where it comes to ticket services. So that's where you need to have the ability to get to the ballpark, on your own. We're not going to pay for, your commuter, things like that. Then come January, February, I'm really looking to bulk up my summer group. So the people that are local to the area but go to schools that aren't necessarily local, or that they can't, their course load work in the spring, right? So I do those interviews, and we onboard in May. And then the real tough guessing game is the August time, right? It's like I'm constantly, again, to use my old admissions term, I take resumes on a rolling basis. So I'll take resumes, I'll add into a pile, and then I look to see what I have in the database, and I look at locations for certain times. But if we're looking like we were last year, like, okay, Red October looks like it's going to happen. Wow, I'm losing 20 employees come mid-August. Baseball's going to keep playing September, October. That's why I really start to look in July and start to have those phone calls and say, okay, hey, you go to Rowan. Do you want to, come work for me starting in September, when you get back into the fall? And then you usually do those contracts September to December, and then it's really going to be based on performance, and maybe you're going to roll back with me come January. You're part of that group that we're going to keep building. So that's kind of how it's going to go right now. And then for my post-grad position, right? So anybody that's a senior in the room that's graduating and you're like, hey, I want to get my foot in the door when it comes to that sales associate program, Teamwork Online. If you're not on Teamwork Online, get on Teamwork Online. It's a free website. It's like the monster.com of the sports industry. We traditionally will post there in April, right? So we'll post in April about our job, our sales associate cohort, with the intent to bring you on probably by August of 2026. And you're going to be contracted until about November of 27. So you really get your foot in the door, you get to learn the ropes, and you get a full off season, a full season to kind of see what's going to happen from there.
Now, you could also take someone from that undergrad program that could continue then
To grow.
That's happened. I mean, I've heard that a number of times.
Exactly.
Right? I'll end on this note. There was a student that came up to one of our students at a Phillies game and said, hey, I go to Syracuse. How can I get an internship with the Phillies if I didn't go to Rowan?
That's
and
great.
There are a ton of Rowan students with the Phillies.
Yeah.
Right, in production, game, with Anthony Figazzato's group, with game promotions, ticket services. I think we have a great group. I hope you will, consider it. I know there's going to be a lot that are going to want to talk to you here afterwards. But I look in the room and I know some of these students who have applied in the past that would be, interested in getting a shot.
Yeah.
So, while you're going to give him a pen, think about giving a couple of these people an internship, right? All right, let's give Ryan Simon a round of applause.